So we are opening the door today for our conference day, the summit of every Transport and Climate Change Week, where we connect with our ultimate goal, the climate commitment. So this year we have opened the floor for a broader a broader audience, the blue is the blue. And then I will share with you some etiquette that we should follow in the virtual space for this to keep on being our private safe space for peers global-wide. So keep your microphone on mute all the time. Raise your hand before talking and share in the chat, as Mr. Mustafa has done already. Where are you connecting from? And if you like to be contacted, share us. Where are you and why people should be interested in contacting you? At the same time, turn on your video so we can know you a little bit and stay present and respectful. Transport and Climate Change Week has in the heart to be an open community for experts and a safe space for peer exchange. So we are trying to keep that inclusiveness and secure space for everyone. So if by any chance you feel offended or misinterpreted, please let us know through the emails shared in the slide. And if you face any issue, you get lost in the virtual space, send us an email to transportweek@gic.de. So with that, we are ready to come into the second session of the day. As we have prepared a nice agenda, we are coming to the summit conference day, the climate commitment. We have new today the case of Asia and how Asia is leading the transformation with zero-emission zoning and also gaining political commitment towards the NDC and climate. And difficult topic, trucks, freight, deliveries. So this is why we are getting bold every year. And as yesterday, we included aviation. Today, we are opening the floor for accelerating the decarbonization of trucks worldwide. So for that, I would like to invite Marise Meijer for her to lead us through the session, Accelerating the Decarbonization of Trucks Worldwide. Marisa, you can take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I am based in the Netherlands, so here it's morning. My name is Marise Meijer, and I work for the Dutch government. And it's my honor today to open this session on accelerating the decarbonization of trucks worldwide. I'm not here by myself. The session is co-hosted by CALSTART Drive to Zero, by Smart Freight Center, and by the Kuhne Foundation. We have quite a full program today. Just want to show you, sorry, just checking if, yes. So this is a very short overview of the agenda. We will start with a short introduction of trucks and zero-emission technologies. Then we will talk about a global memorandum of understanding on zero-emission buses and trucks. Then we will head on to zero-emission corridors around the globe and have a deep dive into how East Africa is greening its freight. And then we will have two presentations about deployments of zero-emission trucks. The first one will cover Ghana, who has 1,000 retrofitted electric waste trucks. And then the second one will be on zero-emission light-duty trucks that were developed by Ox Delivers in Rwanda. There will be 10 minutes of Q&A at the end of the webinar, but if you have a really pressing question that you want to ask during the presentation, please feel free to do so in the chat or just unmute yourself, raise your hand, whatever you prefer. So very shortly, the objective of the next 90 minutes for us is really to inform and inspire you about all the various initiatives and collaborations that are happening around the world to accelerate the decarbonization of trucks. And our goal is really to show that these vehicles are already on the road, that they are being deployed in various areas around the world, and that the technology is viable and the cost can also be made to work. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope you learn a lot, are inspired, and have some fun as well. So it's my honor to introduce you to the first speaker of today, my dear colleague Ricardo Garcia Coyne, who works for CALSTART Drive to Zero and will introduce you to everything about trucking and zero-emission technologies. Ricardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marise, and thank you to GIZ for the kind invitation. So I will be talking with you briefly about zero-emission trucks. What's the current status of medium and heavy-duty vehicles? What is this technology offering? What's the level of technology maturity that we have? And finally, a couple of things that we're seeing in terms of economic opportunities and government action. Very briefly, I'm Ricardo Garcia from CALSTART. We are a non-profit organization, and we've been working for 30 years in decarbonizing trucks and buses. So that's a bit of what I'll be sharing with you today. So briefly, the reason why we focus on medium and heavy-duty vehicles, or trucks and buses, is because these vehicles represent 4% of the total fleet in the world, but they consume over 36% of fuel and 73% of nitrogen oxide emissions. So it's a very small portion of the global fleet that has an outstanding contribution to climate change and air pollution. When we look at the numbers internationally, and this is a great analysis done by Smart Freight Center and Bloomberg, which I can share the link if you like, we know that there are around 86 million medium and heavy-duty trucks and buses on the market. The number of trucks is growing year by year. Actually, when you look at the emissions from the different sectors globally, transport is the only sector that continues to grow in terms of the amount of climate emissions that we have year by year. So we're seeing the number of trucks on the roads increase around 2% every year. We see this around 45% of all the commercial vehicles that we have on the market are concentrated in just 4 markets: India, Europe, China, and the US. So yeah, this is what we're dealing with in terms of the problem. Now, when we look specifically at emerging markets, we see a couple of additional challenges. For one, the vehicles that we have on the road in emerging markets tend to be older, which means they are also more polluting than the ones that you have in more developed economies. Additionally, when we look towards the future, we see that the largest growth will happen in emerging markets. We expect the freight demand globally to almost triple by 2050, with the largest growth rates happening in Asia and Africa. In Africa, we're talking about a 435% increase in the billions of ton kilometers required for freight. And we see similar numbers in other markets. So the problem is getting worse, which is why we need to act immediately. Go to the next slide. I think my computer froze for a bit. There we go. Perfect, thanks. Yeah, so in terms of the technology, we're looking at technology maturity happening in waves, right? We've seen that the first types of vehicles that become compatible with zero-emission technologies, and particularly battery electric, are lighter vehicles with short duty cycles that go back to their bases at the end of their shift. We see that happening particularly with cargo bikes and rickshaws, followed by transit buses, then delivery vans, and then heavier vehicle segments. So we've started to see traction around this, but this is the way the technology has matured. And one of the things we do at CALSTART is to track how fast the technology is maturing. And you can find this tool online. It's publicly available. It's called the Zero-Emission Technology Inventory. And what we do here is to track all the different models of vehicles that are commercially available, that you could go out and buy today. And we find that there are almost 1,000 different truck and bus models available today. So in terms of the performance of the vehicles, we typically hear that range, so the amount of kilometers or miles that a truck can go on a single charge, is one of the biggest concerns that fleets have. We find that for the vehicles available on the market, ranges typically are between 200 and 400 kilometers, but we see vehicles that can go up to 800 kilometers on a single charge. So the technology has sufficient maturity to meet the vast majority of use cases. I'm having a bit of a delay with the slides. Sorry about that.
I can take over, Ricardo, and switch
thank you,
slides.
Marise. If that works, that would be great. So these are just a couple of examples of Latin America. We see in Colombia, Bavaria, and Renting are deploying 200 electric delivery trucks. And if we can go to the next slides, we have a couple of additional examples. So in Mexico, Grupo Modelo and Element, a leasing company, they are providing 100 delivery trucks. These trucks are made in Mexico, and what's very interesting about this deployment is that they are actually deploying them for lower than the cost of traditional diesel vehicles. This is another deployment in Mexico, 120 electric Class 8 tractor trailers. This is the biggest type of truck that you typically see on the roads. And those are already being deployed in Mexico without incentives like the ones you see in California and other markets. Again, in Mexico, Grupo Bimbo is deploying over 2,500 zero-emission vehicles, from tractor trailers to delivery vans to passenger cars. So we see electrification is really ramping up. I'm talking about examples in Latin America, but we see this happening globally. In terms of the economic opportunities that we see, these are just a couple of high-level data points for you to keep in mind. So based on analysis by McKinsey, we've seen that we can expect around $3.4 trillion in annual investments in zero-emission vehicle adoption. So we're talking about a huge market. This is what's being calculated from now till 2050. So it's a massive economic opportunity for countries that are able to develop these industries and support their fleet in making the transition. When we look at fossil fuels, the variation in prices tends to be very complicated for fleets because it doesn't allow you to plan your finances towards the future that well. If we look at the period between 2020 and 2022, a barrel of crude oil varied from $14 to $130, and that obviously impacts the price of diesel and gasoline that goes into the vehicles. With electricity, you have much more stable pricing, which makes the economics easier for fleets. And finally, when we're talking about trucks, we typically talk not only about the cost of the vehicle and the infrastructure, but the entire costs of owning and operating that vehicle throughout its lifetime, what we typically call the total cost of ownership. So we are starting to see the total cost of ownership of electric vehicles to be on parity with the cost of diesel vehicles, which means that fleets can deploy electric vehicles for the same price that they would pay for diesel, which is very encouraging. And we've started seeing that both in markets where you have incentives, but also some where you don't. Now, my final slides are about government action. And here, again, this is a tool that you can find on the Drive to Zero website. We're basically tracking regulation and incentives developed by countries, leading economies, but also all the nations that have signed the Global Memorandum of Understanding, which you will hear a bit more about in a couple of minutes. So we're seeing many countries adopt targets on how fast they want to sell zero-emission trucks and buses. But then we see many countries moving from non-binding targets to actually having supply-side regulations that compel manufacturers and importers to sell an increasing number of zero-emission vehicles years by year. When you look at the markets that are most advanced in terms of zero-emission trucks, the vast majority of them have already adopted this type of regulation. So that essentially means sales mandates, emission standards, fuel economy standards. Ethiopia was the first country to actually ban the importation of internal combustion engine vehicles. So any regulation that puts the obligation on manufacturers to sell an increasing number of zero-emission vehicles, that's what we've seen has been extremely effective at moving the market. Just to wrap up, this is an analysis that compares different policy alternatives. It shows that mandates on manufacturers are the most effective policy to reduce the cost of their technologies. It's essentially brings in additional innovation and economies of scale, which make the vehicles more affordable for the end users. And this is the total cost benefits analysis from California. When they passed the regulation, their main finding was that by passing supply side regulation or their set mandate, they would be reducing the cost of trucking in California by almost $6 billion. So this is an extremely interesting policy approach that we've been seeing, and happy to talk about this more in the Q&A or later on if you'd like to reach out. So thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. And I hope that introduced everyone to the world of trucking. Sorry, do I hear anyone speaking? I thought I heard someone open their mic, but maybe I was mistaken. If you have a pressing question for Ricardo, feel free to ask it in the chat or to open your mic. If it's less pressing and it can wait, please leave it for the Q&A at the end of the webinar. So next up for our agenda, I will be talking to a Global Memorandum of Understanding on zero-emission trucks and buses. And it fits really well with Ricardo's story. Of course, he said that we have a problem with trucking because they're only a small part of the fleet, but they have a disproportionate effect on our climate and on the economy. And in order to make use of the momentum that we finally have this new technology of zero-emission vehicles, the Netherlands, together with CALSTART, have started the Global Memorandum of Understanding. Oh, and I'm sorry, I don't know what happened here with the text, but it is an initiative that countries can sign, and it can also be endorsed by subnational governments or by organizations, philanthropies, etc. The targets that we have are non-binding, but they are trying to set a worldwide standard to make sure that different countries are on the same page and are looking at the same point on the horizon. So what we are trying to do is to have 30% of the newly sold trucks and buses be zero emission by 2030, and then have 100% of these newly sold vehicles be zero emission by 2040. And this initiative was started 3 years ago at COP, and we have been gaining more and more countries every year, and we're so proud of our growing community. So what it does is it sends a really strong market signal. So if a country signs, it sends a signal to the market within the country, but also, of course, internationally, that this is where we want to go. We want to have zero emission be the primal technology. The Global MOU also supports policy development, and it accelerates the deployment of zero-emission trucks. Just to shortly introduce what we do. We currently have 38 Global MOU country signatories. We started with 15 3 years ago, so we have grown quite a bit. And we are very proud to have a mix of various different types of countries. We have countries in Europe, but also in Africa and South America, Asia, and very large economies like, for example, the United States, but also very small economies like Aruba and Curacao, small island developing states. So very just a broad mix of countries with very different aspects, but all working towards the same goal. And if we look at the world map, these are the countries that have signed today. So you can also see this really nice mix of geographic locations as well. And I am sorry, some of the small island development states can't be shown here on this map, but they are there, of course. So like I said, next to countries, the Global MOU can be endorsed by various types of organizations like subnational governments, manufacturers and suppliers like Scania and Rivian have endorsed BYD as well, fleet owners and operators like DHL, Deutsche Post, utility and infrastructure providers, so the companies that are building the charging infrastructure to support the zero-emission trucks, finance institutions, and also knowledge partners and other endorsers like Smart Freight Center, who is also a co-host of this webinar. And what we do, or what we can help to do, support signatory countries, is MOU signatory countries can expect policy and regulatory support in order to lead market adoption and attract investment. We have topical working groups based on country priorities. For example, we have our Zero-Emission Vehicle Island Task Force, which includes many of our small island developing states like Tonga, Cabo Verde, Seychelles, but also Aruba, Sint Maarten. So we really work on what is specific to the use case of small island developing states. How can they learn from each other and come together for that, knowledge sharing and experience learning? So there is access to resources such as the ZEDI tool that Ricardo just showed, ZEVWise, and the policy suite. We also have one-on-one engagement with our signatory countries in catered networking with the Global MOU team. We we send out invitations to speak at international events or regional events, like, for example, COP, which is coming up next week, but also regional climate weeks. And we have opportunities to elevate country progress and influential practices in publications and in media. We also organize various quarterly virtual meetings similar to this one, actually, between Global MOU signatories. We do that 4 times a year, and we have an annual in-person Global MOU summit where everyone comes together. And on the right side, you can see some pictures of the in-person convening from this year, which was in Madrid. It was a really fun 2 days where we learned a lot. We brought so many people came together from all over the world. We went to visit an electric bus transit, so that was really interesting as well. And then one thing I want to mention as well is that emerging market signatories can also get access to tailored technical assistance for regulatory development through the ZEV Rapid Response Facility. All signatory countries to the Global MOU are eligible for this Rapid Response Facility, and it can really help with specific questions that you have in technical expertise. You can access this grant as it is. You put in a request in the hub, and then there are various organizations tied to it that can help with your request, and then you can get help with research and analysis or policy design, for example, technical training and signposting. So this is a really great opportunity for our signatory countries, and we are very proud to be able to offer this. And then I think this is already the end of my presentation. Yes, so if your country may be interested to sign, please let us know. You can reach out to me or my colleague Ricardo. Our email addresses are here, but also in the end. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Then it is time to move on to the next presentation. Unless anyone has any pressing questions, let me know. But in the meantime, it's my honor to introduce you to these 3 wonderful ladies, Olivia Lamenya from the Kuhne Foundation, Til Erdenebold from Smart Freight Center, and Katie Mambua, also from Smart Freight Center. And they will be talking a little bit more about 10 global zero-emission corridors and how East Africa is greening its freight.
Great,
so welcome.
Thank you, Marissa.
You're welcome. The floor is yours.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Mumboa, Project Manager, East Africa of Smart Freight Center. And Smart Freight Center is a global nonprofit organization that's dedicated to making freight more sustainable by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and improving efficiency in the logistics center. So we can move on to the next slide.
Yes.
So the Global Green Road Corridors Initiative is an initiative led by the ZEVWise Coalition, which includes key partners such as CALSTART, Drive to Zero, the Electric Vehicles Initiative, International Council on Clean Transportation, International Transport Forum, Smart Freight Center, UNEP, and others. And these organizations work collaboratively, with the governments, development finance institutions, industry stakeholders, and innovators towards this ambitious project that is aimed at transforming the key freight routes worldwide. So the goal is to establish zero-emission corridors that will reduce the environmental impact on road freight that is very critical given that trucks continue to be the backbone of global goods and movement. As Ricardo mentioned, there is an increasing demand for freight, and the technology is there, and the electrification of trucks is happening globally. So this project's main goal is to ensure that these corridors become a blueprint and a catalyst for similar sustainable efforts globally. Next slide, please. So what are green corridors? I'm sure most of you already know. These are important transport routes designed to facilitate the movement of goods with minimal environmental impact. So this includes an integration of zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicles, supporting infrastructure like charging infrastructure and fueling stations to promote clean transport solutions. The idea is essentially to shift from diesel-powered freight contributing to heavy pollution to a cleaner, more sustainable alternative that benefits both the environment and local communities while creating economic benefits for those along the corridors. So these corridors not only align with the global climate targets, but also attract foreign investment and create job opportunities, as I mentioned. Next slide. So what are these 10 corridors? So far, we have 8. This initiative has been able to identify 8 that are being developed through the strategic partnerships. The first one is the FIFA 2026 corridor that connects Canada, the US, and Mexico. Then you have the US-Mexico border corridor spanning from California to Baja California to Texas and Nuevo Leon. Then the third one is the Southern Africa Container Corridor that links the port of Durban with several neighboring countries. The fourth being the First India Corridor that is Mumbai, Delhi, and Delhi, Jaipur. The second one is the India Corridor that links the National Highway 48 connecting to Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai. The sixth is the European Corridor to Zero traversing Netherlands, Germany, Poland, and Ukraine. The seventh is the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route connecting China to Europe via Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey. Then the eighth is the I-95 corridor in the US stretching from Georgia to New Jersey. We'll hear about the 9th and the 10th because I'm sure you're wondering what about the 9th and the 10th. We'll mention those later and what is happening with those 2 corridors. But so far, these projects demonstrate collaboration across public and private sectors, aiming to scale infrastructure deployment and operational readiness. So this initiative ensures that knowledge, tools, and best practices are shared, making these corridors replicable and scalable for future development. I'll hand over to Tul to give more information on the 9th and 10th corridors. Over to you, Tul.
Yes, thank you, Katie. So now that we've heard more about the green corridors, I wanted to shed some light in terms of the pilot projects that are going around the world. So starting with the US. So in the US, we have recently set up a pilot project that are starting on the Interstate 10, which is a stretch of a highway going from California to Texas. It's about 1,300 kilometers, and this pilot is going to test out the operational feasibility with a charging infrastructure provider called Terawatt. Currently, we are setting up a consortium with 2 shippers and 3 carriers. So this will basically strengthen the shipper-carrier alliance and really assess how the long-haul trucking will work in terms of very far distances. And looking into that, this leads to some of the explorations in terms of financing as well as charging solutions. Next, we have Europe, if my animation works. Maybe I'll give back the control to you, Marise, because I think there's quite a bit of a lag. There are some animations that might come up. Okay, so in Europe, we have 2 projects. The first one is with the Port of Rotterdam. This is a project focused on port drayage solutions. And for those of you that may be unfamiliar, port drayage is basically a plannable movement when a cargo ship comes to a dock and that container is offloaded to land. And this is usually in the proximity of less than 100 kilometers. So it's very like quick, short planned distances. And this is in a partnership with the Port of Rotterdam. As we've heard from Marisa, of course, the Dutch government is pioneering when it comes to incentives for electrification pilots, as well as incentives, as well as policies. So Port of Rotterdam, of course, is tapping into that, and they are also aligning with their own ambitious targets for when it comes to their sustainability goals. The next one we have is the Poland corridor. This is in its pretty infant stages. The key here is to figure out feasible locations within Poland to understand how zero emission corridors can be set up. And Poland is quite critical within Europe, especially because they have the highest segment of road transport when it comes to freight and logistics. And of course, with the government, they're also coming up with some key incentives that may be quite attractive and strengthening the zero emission sphere. Next, we have project in China. This project actually recently finished as of September. This was a 2-year project that was set up with Smart Waste Center China, as well as key stakeholders from the government, the private sector, as well as research institutions. And the goal was to understand a holistic approach to sharing charging infrastructure, as well as setting up a zero emission corridor. So there was a pilot with 10 different carriers integrating 38 heavy duty electric vehicles. And there were a lot of key learnings. If you're more interested, I can give you a link to understand the project better. But this basically set up the groundwork for zero emission freight corridors in China and was a blueprint carrying forward the work. Next, we have a example from India. Yes. So the first one is on the eFast, which is actually a government initiative from the Department of Ministry of Energy, I believe. This is basically a common medium to bring together all the relevant stakeholders from NGOs, shippers and carriers, LSPs, OEMs, to come up with a strategy point and identify different barriers when it comes to the ecosystem of zero emission freight. And so far, there have been a lot of deep dives and technical workshops. So this will be quite strong, especially when you think of it from a government perspective in an emerging market, signaling and leveraging their position to bring together everybody. Secondly, there's a project called the Data Partnership Project, which we are partnering with different shippers to understand their operational processing, so that data can feed into and basically influence the different regulations when it comes to medium heavy duty vehicles. And last but not least, we have a project.
Sorry, a little bit of
no
a delay.
worries.
There it is.
Yes. This is in Eastern Africa with the Green Freight Support Program, but I think I will save all the details for Olivia to tell you all about. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you too. So my name is Olivia Lamena. I work for the Kuhne Climate Center. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. So I'll be taking you through the last part of this particular session, and I'll be talking about the northern and the central corridors of East Africa and their green freight program. Both of the corridors are actively implementing their own freight programs, which is why us as implementing and donor partners refer to our initiatives as support green freight programs. Each corridor is at different stages of development and delivery, and this is because it needs to be tailored to the uniqueness of the circumstances of member states who are involved. What is truly exciting about these corridors is that there is a strong commitment for inclusivity. What this means is that there is this unspoken rule that no country will be left behind in the journey towards sustainability. It is a collaborative approach that ensures that all nations are serviced by the corridor, the corridor can participate and benefit and benefit from the changes that are coming their ways. Some of the similarities in these programs being run under the two corridor secretariats include promotion of sustainable freight transport, alignment with climate goals at country level, and then stakeholder collaboration and capacity development. Let me see if I can move to the next slide, Marise.
I can do it for you as well. Olivia, I see some messages in the chat that your sound is a little bit low.
Should I move closer? Is it better?
Maybe you can increase the volume. Yeah, maybe if you move a little bit closer, let's see if that helps. Thank you.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yes, it's better. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. So second slide, I'll talk about the Green Freight Support Program in Eastern Africa. It is a comprehensive initiative that is aimed at transforming logistics in the region, and it works in four main ways. The first one is to convene and engage stakeholders to foster collaboration. The second one is around calculation and reporting of emissions to ensure that there is transparency and accountability. The third point is around improving, optimizing, and enhancing transport methods for greater efficiency. And the last one is around demonstrating, educating, empowering, and building training and other resources to ensure that we strengthen capabilities. The core goal of this program is to facilitate the transition to greener solutions within the region and ultimately working towards net zero corridors in major parts of the region. This emphasizes our commitment to long-term sustainability. Collaboration is key, and that's why we are not alone. We are working closely with organizations like UNEP, the two corridors, which is the Central and the Northern Corridor, CALSTART, GIZ, Smart Freight Center, and Trademark. The reason being is that as a robust network of partners, we're able to enhance program effectiveness and ensure that we utilize best practices, resources, and the technology that's available. In essence, the program embodies a transformative approach to freight for Eastern Africa by focusing on climate-friendly energy integrations, fostering stakeholder collaboration, and implementing sustainable training initiatives that pave a way for a sustainable, innovative, and innovative logistics sector in the region. The third slide, please, Marisa.
Yes.
Okay.
There it is.
And then finally, there is a need to demonstrate viability of various chemistries within the region, and that's why we need a project. Our project is called the Truck Electrification Project. Every time people think about Africa, there's a need to understand what are the signals that are coming out of Africa that are indicating Africa's readiness for change. In 2020, Kenya only had 65 hybrid electric vehicles registered in the country, and there was no industry for e-mobility to allow people to understand that the region was ready for that. So if we were to use those signals, we may never have understood the needs for the region and the desire for the region to want to move into a greener space. However, today, that same sector now has 60 companies which are doing assembly, which is creating a lot of local industry. There's also direct importation and sales. And currently on the roads of Kenya, there are about 7,500, 100% electric vehicles, and the majority of them are in the two-wheeler space. If we go back to the freight space, currently the region only has one electric truck which has not yet been commissioned. The question is, does this signal that the region is ready or maybe not for freight electrification? A few weeks ago, we had a summit through the ICC that was instrumental in providing us clarity on what our initiatives are. And it offered us insight into who, what, where, when, while creating a distinguished understanding between what are real needs and wants. Some of the themes that were discussed at this summit were adaptability and innovation, technical advancements, sustainable development, cultural exchange, and global economic integration. When we think about the project, in order to be able to deploy an electric truck project in Africa, we need to focus on various critical studies especially related to operations, finance, emission, and energy integration. The initiative is part of a broader effort to enhance the region's transportation infrastructure while aligning with global sustainable goals. Where the project currently is at today is a POC is being developed to assess the feasibility and impact of electric vehicles in an African context. This includes evaluating operational efficiencies, financial viability, and environmental benefits. We've already mapped stakeholders. That's why it's not readable on the PowerPoint, because there are very many stakeholders that we need to engage with who have, and there is a lot of local expectation and requirements that need to be put into consideration to allow the environment in which this POC will work to be a very collaborative one and allow for that implementation to be a bit more smoother. So key areas of focus, like I've said, will be operations, finance, emissions, and energy integration needs. So to end this part of the presentation, while Africa may be the last continent transitioning into this climate-friendly mobility space, it is important for adaptation and innovation to remain at the forefront of it. This initiative goes beyond, it's not just about introducing electric vehicles, it's about a transformative approach towards sustainable development across the continent by harnessing local innovations, aligning with global best practices, and we will not only be paving the way for a greener logistics, but also will be setting the stage for Africa to emerge as a significant player in the global transition towards cleaner mobility. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. And that last final note was incredible. And we're so lucky to be hearing more of African innovation in the rest of the program, because I think we can learn a lot from what you are doing. Did I see a hand from someone, or was that a mistake? I don't see it anymore. If you have any pressing questions for Olivia, Katie, or for Tu, feel free to post them in the chat or to unmute yourself, but you can also save them for later as we have a Q&A in the end. Thank you so much for this part of the presentation. We will be moving on now to 2 examples of deployment of zero-emission trucks. And for the first part, I would like to invite Glenn Kwabena Gyimah to unmute himself and take the floor to have a presentation on Ghana's zero-emission waste trucks.
Right. Thank you very much, and good morning from Ghana to everyone. My name is Glenn Kwabena Gyimah, as already said, the lead for the Just One Green Transition Office. This session, I'm here to do a presentation on our initiative in trying to retrofit 1,000 trucks that we use in collecting the waste across the country in transition from the ICE engines to the electrification fleet, right? So, can you move on?
Yes.
Right, so Zoom Lion Ghana Limited. The problem of embarking on this journey as a result of trying to decarbonize our environment. And in Ghana, it is attributed that transportation globally, it contributes to 21% of the greenhouse gas emission that we are all battling with. And then at the same time in Ghana, it is also estimated over 6 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent being produced out of these transportation activities. Now, in this volume, the road transport alone has a share of 77% of carbon dioxide equivalent being emitted yearly. Now, the increase from which it was as a decade ago to the year 2016 has been 16% increase, and that is quite phenomenal. And so it is something that all of us ought to be worried about. And as Zoom Lion, we operate in the waste collection sector. We deploy a lot of ICE engine vehicles and trucks on the road to ensure that we are able to collect these wastes that are being generated at households, industries, at public places to the transfer stations, where they are hauled again to the treatment facilities for its safe treatment and disposal. Now, the transportation sector, you realize that the transports on our road, they have a gas, that is the tailpipe. The tailpipe emits a poisonous kind of substance that is not environmentally friendly. And it's estimated that that substance alone causes a health hazard to the people in the community where such activities prevail. And it's estimated to be about 7.8 million. That is in terms of its health implication to the people around the area. And so here we are looking at the people's life that has been consumed as to that tune of 7.8 million. So it is something that we need to be worried about. And at the same time, it's also equivalent to 1 trillion health damages that it caused, as a report generated in the year 2016. Can you move on, please?
Yes.
Now, the main point here is we are looking at the increasing operational cost. As Zoom Lion, as I've already made it clear, we operate in the waste management sector. And here, Ghana imports not less than $4.4 billion of refined oil annually. And that is a lot of money. And all these oils, when it gets to the country, where does it go? It goes into production activities. And that is to say that it emits a lot of greenhouse gas emission into the environment. Now, Ghana has had a high inflationary rate, which is also impacting massively on the entire.
Hi, Glenn. Sorry, for me, the connection is glitching a little.
Of the Zoom Lion. Is it better?
It's glitching a little bit, but let's try. And otherwise, if it doesn't get better, we can try switching off your camera. So maybe the audio will be better. But for now, let's continue a little bit. Thank you.
All right.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
The Ghana inflation rate is also something that had.
Glenn, sorry, I am going to interrupt you again. My apologies. But it seems to be a little bit worse again. Can you kindly switch off your video so we can see if your audio improves? Thank you.
I don't know whether it has improved. Is it better now?
It's better now. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So as I was saying, the cumulative inflation rates impact on our operation is very high, to the tune of 125%. And that is quite something to worry about. That within a 3-year period, it's something to worry about. Then the other thing too is all-time high fuel cost. That's if looking at the year 2022 and up to the year 2023 July, the inflation rate difference had increased up to 43%, and that is alarming. Lastly, on the increasing operational cost is fuel and maintenance cost. It's quite something, it keeps on fluctuating and increasing periodically. And so the burden on the operators or the users of these trucks in doing businesses becomes high every now and then. Now, let's look at the key environmental concern. The environmental concern here is that we're looking at annually our trucks alone, that is 1,000 trucks contributing to producing a carbon dioxide equivalent of about 500,000 tons. We manage 500,000 tons of waste to the tune of contributing to 91,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So the 500,000 tons of waste being transported in a year, we emit not less than 91,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide. And that is very alarming. Now, we also look at the companies in its area of ESG policy. The ESG policy is something that is at the core of us, but looking at the situation that concerns the operational cost and then also the environmental impact, it makes it difficult for us to stick to our ESG policy and the various aspects that we needed to achieve in compliance with our ESG policy. Then also, Ghana's sector of actually depends a lot on the issue of the transportation. Transportation sector carries almost everything in Ghana. Then also here, the aspect of electricity generation, it's also quite huge, and it also contributes about 60% of the activities in the country. Then the other aspect too is about the PM, that is the particulate matter of Accra or of Ghana. The particulate matter of Accra of 2.5 is now ranging about 11 times more, and it's something that is not, it is something that ought not to be encouraged, and we needed to find a way of mitigating all these environmental concerns. So now let's look at what we have in mind to do to rectify this situation. Now the solution is we are moving to electrification of our fleets, and that is starting with 1,000 trucks. Starting with 1,000 trucks helps us to save, and then also there is also a significant reduction in the use of the fossil fuel, because when we shift to the electrification, the dependence on the fossil fuel will become less. Then also it also helps us to help with getting our deployment of the deployment of the electric vehicle in the country. We serve as a pace setter to help with the quick deployment of the electric vehicles in the country. Can you move on, please?
Yes.
Now, the key existing and targeted partners that we have, we're looking at the technical sector. We have signed a partnership deal with the Zero-Emission. As we speak, the 2 trucks that are supposed to arrive in the country as a pilot project leading to the rolling out of the remaining trucks had arrived, and it's been cleared out of the port, and in no time, the pilot project will start. However, we've also left 1 truck at Zero-Nox California workshop to be giving them feedback on the 2 that we have brought to Ghana now to start the pilot project, hoping that any challenge that will be faced with will be reported back for them to do those adjustments on the other one that is left in California. We also have a charging infrastructure partners also as under the IFSA arrangement. Now, we also have financial partners. That is, we are looking up to the Green Climate Fund to support in a grant of about 50% to ensure that we are able to embark on this particular project. And then on the other area of concessional loans and debt servicing activities, we have a couple of partners that we have outlined in a conversation, which to ensure that we get this project through to the successfulness of it. Can we move on, please?
Yes, sorry.
Right, so what is the benefit? The benefit here is we are able to save 364,000 carbon dioxide equivalent metric tons. That is how much within the period of its implementation we'll be able to save up to the year 2030. Now, we would then, in the course of, as a result of that, might have saved a mature tree of not less than 14.5 projects. Kindly move on, please.
Yes. Sorry, Glenn, your connection is getting a little worse again, but maybe with some patience, it will soon improve again. But if I interrupt you, I'm sorry, it's just because we don't understand you. But now let's try again.
All right, okay. So now let's look at the social impact.
Yeah, we've lost you now for a little bit, Glenn.
With
Are you there?
the social impact of this project, will be able to provide. I'm still here.
Okay, yeah, I hear you again as well. Please just slowly continue, and if we don't hear you, I'll interrupt again.
All right, thank you. So what I was saying is that the social benefit of this project, as we intend to embark on, is going to provide drivers and engineers upskilled job each year. Then also the upscaling of existing mechanics. Then existing mechanics would also be retooled, would also be re-equipped to get the up-to-date skills they need to ensure that they keep their job and be able to perform much better. We're also looking at 40% of new direct technical jobs targeting only women. So that also is a good thing that we intend to do. Then the workforce development, also we intend to ensure that our academy, the JOSPON group of companies, have an academy, and the essence of the academy is to continue to provide a continuous development of the staff to stay up to speed, to ensure that they are able to serve the essence of their employment. So that is what we have at the social impact level. Can we move on, please?
Yes. There is one question in the chat for you, Glenn, but I will save it until the end of your presentation.
Right, so the economic benefits here, we'll be saving close to $252 million savings over the 5 years fleet of 1,000 being retrofitted. And here we're looking at 38 million being as a result of NPV net profit value over the 5 years. And then also the IRR, that is internal rate of returns, also being 16%. And then the payback period, or the payback period will be 4.3 years. That is what we intend in terms of the economic benefits. So within 5 years, there's going to be a gain in the rolling out of this particular project. Can you move on, please?
Yes.
Then also the project cost. We are looking at JOSPON as one of the source of the project cost, then also getting a grant or a support from the Green Climate Fund, and then also relying on DFIs across the world, as we've outlined some of them over there, in supporting to achieve this project. And in terms of the use, we are looking at the capital expenditure being within the range of over $100 million, and then also the working capital to being within above $2 million. So that is basically where we are looking at in terms of the project cost, source, and use of the funds. Right now, right, so the project sponsors is purely Zoom Lion Ghana Limited, and it's quite a big group of CSP group. And so we are looking at a staff strength of not less than 6,000. We are also looking at project staff that is to be employed. We are looking at the coverage area and also looking at the design of the operations, basically in Africa, and also making sure that we extend our tentacles to any other neighboring 5 African countries to start with, but many other countries that will also be interested in getting on board. So that is basically how the entire project sponsorship is going to be like. We can move on, right? So now let's look at the general business model. The general business model here, we basically lift waste from households, industries, community areas, public places, and other relevant places that are waste generation inclined. And so we will do that with the mini trucks that goes and lift it. And then right there, they straight identify the nearest transfer station, whereas they are able to dump there and allow a bigger truck to pull the waste from there all the way to the recycling facility. Now, how is it going to be funded in terms of revenue lines? The revenue lines is going to be based on the dumping fees. There is also a support of the recoverables being recovered and being sold. And then the final support is the government subsidy in managing these facilities. And so these are going to be the basic revenue lines in generating revenue, in ensuring the sustainability of the project should it come to pass. Could you move on, please? Right, so now how is the revenue model also going to be like? Here, we're looking at comparing the existing diesel engine system. So the diesel engine system talks about the use of $75 million. And we're looking at the shifting to the EV, the dependence is going to be $10 million. And so here we're looking at saving $65 million. The breakdowns are also being shown over there. The fuel cost, the maintenance cost, and that's also the electricity cost under the electrification aspect, and also the maintenance cost under the electrification aspect. And cumulatively, you see that we are saving over $60 million should we embark on our path within the path of doing this activity. Can you move on, please?
Yes.
Right, so here is also to give you a sense of the project financing model. We have Zoomlion, the Zero-Nox. The Zero-Nox is a technical expert. They help us with the electrofitting and the infrastructure development to Zoomlion. Then the investor, which stands there with the help of the DFIs, they also help with payment to the Zoomlion, and then also help with some of the operational activities cost to Zoomlion. And then there's going to be a continuous money that flows into the escrow account or the escrow fund that also recurred, that also goes back to help with the DFIs to help us keep the project running. And then Zoomlion will also be paying the escrow fund the needed amount through the engagement that we will have with all our funding partners. So that's basically how the financial model is going to be should we succeed in getting this project ongoing.
Thank you, Glenn. I just want to let you know that we are running out of time for your presentation. So perhaps we can move a little bit quicker through these slides and also skip some. What do you think are the most important ones?
I think let me tackle this and then maybe we'll skip to the timelines if that works well.
Yeah, of course.
Right, so basically what we intend to do in this conversion process, what we intend to do is we intend eliminating the internal combustion engines. We intend to eliminate the fuel tank. We intend to eliminate the transmission system. We intend to eliminate the muffler, and then also the transmission and other auxiliary things that helps with the internal combustion activities. And then in replacement, we are bringing in the battery cell system that will support the drive. We intend to also bring in the battery management system, the power, and then the battery distribution units. We intend to bring in the cable and then the wiring system, the existing DC charging, motor, and other auxiliary things that helps with the transmission of the vehicle as it moves from the ICE to the electrification. So basically, that is what we are going to, and then these are the examples of some of our trucks that we have in Ghana, and we intend to retrofit them should we move on after the pilot had been successful. Can you move on?
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we can move to this one.
So basically, in supporting the activity to be sustainable, we've also developed a curriculum. And the curriculum is in partnership with the Zero-Nox and some technical universities in Ghana to help keep training staff to be used for this program. So with the roadmap as it is now, we've made progress. And as I said, currently where we are, we had a bit of delay in bringing the 2 trucks that had been retrofitted at California to Ghana. As you speak, it just arrived this month. And so we are getting it out of the port, and in no time, we will start the pilot program. And so the timelines as it is now is a bit delayed. And so in our next opportunity to share any information, we will update, because we're just waiting for the equipment, the 2 trucks to arrive, which they've arrived. Just to also add that we've also set up the charging infrastructure. We have some of them currently set up in Accra that we are waiting to deploy the trucks as soon as they arrive, so that they'll be using them whenever the need arises for them to reach out. So basically, this all that I have to say about the is in Ghana in trying to decarbonize the transportation sector with the retrofitting of our 1,000 trucks that are used in cutting waste from communities, household, public places, and industries to our recycling facility. And so I will now want to end here and be waiting for questions if there are any. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Glenn, for your presentation. It's so interesting to learn and see how this project is going to develop. You do have some questions because we are running a bit behind schedule. I'm going to highlight one, and then we can save the others for after the during the Q&A. So the most important one is, what are the costs associated with retrofitting? And would it make business sense without the GCF grant? Have you done a TCO analysis? So this is really about the costs of retrofitting the vehicle.
Correct. Thank you very much. Yes, in fact, we've done the cost of the retrofitting the vehicle. In fact, that has led to us to get the saving cost, how much we will be saving should we move on to that kind of project. And for sure, we have it. We've done that. Now, the Green Climate Fund, should they not help, what is going to be the future of the project? Yes, of course. In fact, that has been one of the things that have delayed the project up to now. However, we're still in talks with a couple of other potential investors that have also expressed interest. So hopefully, should we not succeed in getting the support of Green Climate Fund, we are likely to rely on other funding mechanisms to ensure that we get the project running. And then also there is the carbon credit component in the project modeling. And for that, we also in talk with a couple of interested buyers of the carbon credits. And so hopefully we would certainly make a headway in getting the project in place. So no matter the outcome of the Green Climate Fund engagement, the project will surely come to pass.
Thank you so much, Glenn. And perhaps if you have a more in-depth TCO comparative, we would be very interesting to receive those, or maybe see an overview or a graph. So I will get in touch with you about that. And if anyone would like to receive that information as well, please let me know in the chat. Thank you so much, Glenn. Sorry for all the other questions. Please save them for the Q&A, because now it's really time to go on to our next presentation. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Colin Tebbett from Ox Delivers, who will talk about the zero-emission light-duty truck that they have developed in Rwanda. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marisa. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ricardo at CALSTART and GIZ for hosting this webinar. It's a pleasure to be here. As brief introduction, I'm Colin, as you see there, Head of International Growth at Ox Delivers, which is a British company. I'm also happy to serve as chairperson of Ox Rwanda, which is a subsidiary of Ox. Let me just see if I can control this. I'm not sure that I can, Marisa, actually.
You can't? I see your mouse, but I can do it as well. No worries.
Okay, thank you. So we run trucks differently to others, focusing on the first and last mile connections and transport for food systems, currently in the western province of Rwanda, mainly focusing on those food producers, suppliers, and traders. So you'll see through this presentation that this requires a custom truck suitable for the bad roads that we experience every day. And as Ricardo was talking about, this results in the minimal total cost of ownership of the vehicle. It was great actually to hear Olivia from the Smart Freight Center especially mentioning that for fleets in Africa, it's important to understand operational efficiencies and financial feasibility. And if we could shift to the next slide, Marisa. Well, basically, that's exactly what we've been doing. We started in Ox Rwanda Limited in 2021. And since then, we have grown massively. We now have a staff of 80 employees in Rwanda, running 25 trucks from different hubs in the western province of Rwanda. Those hubs host our trucks, they host our charging facilities, and they host the drivers, the support staff who are working with those trucks. And they quickly become the central trusted logistics hub for the districts that we serve. We also run a long-haul service connecting those hubs with Kigali and cross-border markets, especially with the Congo. So you'll see there at the bottom that we have 6 12-ton long-haul trucks, and we're anxiously waiting for wave 6, I think, of Ricardo's roadmap, where we can electrify those trucks as soon as possible. We started essentially Ox Rwanda running diesel trucks to understand the business model. There is very little data available in who's moving what, a smallholder farmer or a trader, how much they're paying for transport, where are they going to, and even less data on what does it cost to actually deliver that service in terms of energy, people, charging infrastructure, and all of the associated costs that go with a logistics operation. So we started off Ox Rwanda with a series of diesel trucks to understand that business model. But those diesel trucks were also fitted with trackers, sensors, monitors to throw data back to the engineering team in the UK in order to develop the tech that allows us to electrify that fleet. So you can see there that we've quite successful. We run around $100,000 a month revenue from those 25 trucks. We have over 5,600 customers, the majority of whom are smallholder farmers. We have around 50 corporate contracts, which are mostly seasonal, things like coffee, timber, tea. We also move cash. We move everything basically within a district. We very quickly have become the trusted logistics provider in the Western province. Marisa, could you shift to the next slide?
Yes.
So alongside proving the business model, as I mentioned, we've been looking at the tech. So we are now on generation 3 of the Ox truck after 4 years worth of R&D. And that generation is now the first truck that we are 100% confident is capable, financeable, and can run our operations basically every single day, 6 days a week. Alongside running that tech R&D into the Ox truck, that first and last mile truck, we've also been looking into how do we best place that truck into service. So we have a full digital backbone to our operations, which connects up our drivers using an Android phone with the hub manager, running a portal that sees where the trucks are, can they get home, can they get back to charge in the evenings. route planning, shift management, making sure that the trucks go through the maintenance checks every morning, making sure that the preventative maintenance is done 1 day a week. And all of this combines becomes the way that we are able to go to market and address our customers' needs. So this is looking into the operational efficiencies. Marissa, if you could move forward to the financial feasibility. Thank you. So over the past 4 years almost, we have been running diesel trucks as well as progressively electrifying the fleet. And so we can confidently say what the total cost of ownership looks like in rural Rwanda. So every day we make around $140, $150 of revenue per truck. That's the 188,000 francs that you see on the left. Now, when we run that truck with diesel, we're paying around a third of that cost of revenue is just purely diesel. Those are the latest prices there. They're similar to what Glenn was mentioning in Ghana, over $1 a litre. Maintenance costs of those diesel trucks are high. We really punish our trucks. We do around 160 kilometers a day on average. 110, 120 of those are off-road on the bad roads that you may be familiar with in East Africa, which drives up our maintenance bill. Not only that, but when the trucks are off the road due to maintenance, all of that revenue is lost for the following day. So it's paramount to us that we keep our trucks on the road every single day, apart from preventative maintenance. Also delivering that revenue are our staff. So each truck has 2.1 drivers attached to the truck. There's also about another person attached as a support within the hub, which means that each truck drives 3 quality jobs. We have a gender balance target at OX of 50-50. We have achieved that with the central team, the management team. Our managing director in Rwanda is a lady called Francine. Our depot managers are predominantly women. Our only issue is drivers. So every time we put out a job advert, about 99 out of 100 respondents are men, and we have 1 female candidate. So it's very, very difficult every time we put a truck into the market to be able to drive that gender balance forward. We're not doing it at the moment. Well, we're not succeeding at the moment, but we have plans in place actually with GIZ in Rwanda to address our training challenges. So as you can see there, the unit economics per truck are healthy all the way up until we actually have to pay for the truck. And nobody is going to lend us money for a diesel truck when we only have 30,000 francs or about $25 a day available to pay for that truck. So Marissa, if you could shift over to what that looks like when we run it with EV. Thank you. So this is the same operation. We make the same revenue, whether we're running a 4.5-ton diesel truck or a 4.5-ton electric truck. Our customers honestly don't care what truck comes to pick up their goods, as long as it's done affordably and reliably. But for us, it's that shift to EV that truly enables our unit economics. So you can see that we've saved 86% on energy, from a 40-something thousand franc diesel bill down to 9,000 francs of electricity. This is mostly enabled by Rwanda's e-mobility tariff, which is one of the very progressive incentives that Rwanda has in place for electrification of fleets. Our maintenance bill has dropped by half. EVs are simpler, less can go wrong, but also the ox truck emphasizes the fact that as long as you do our preventative maintenance 1 day a week, that truck will run. It will do the 120 kilometers off-road, carrying 2 tons that we demand of it every day. There's no changes there in hub, OPEX, G&A. We have so far been lucky enough, touch wood, to have all of our charges paid for by grants. And all of this results in basically a 50% margin, which enables us to pay debt for trucks. Now, there was a good question earlier about total cost of ownership. I mean, that starts with the purchase price of the vehicle. But if my operations are only pumping out $1,800 a month, somebody needs to pay for the truck up front. So far we have worked very closely with Rwandan banks. We have around $500,000 worth of debt. but we're also in discussions with a host of DFIs, concessional debt providers, impact funds, and as a blended cost of capital across the fleet, we're targeting to pay around $1,000 per truck per month. These are very, very financial figures. Obviously, as part of the decarbonization of trucks, I just would like to flag up that when we run our operations with a diesel truck, we're producing around 34 tons of CO2 equivalent per year. Now, when we do that with an electric truck, using Rwanda's grid, our CO2 equivalent per truck is around 15 tons per year. So that's a saving of 19 tons per truck per year, which is equivalent to around 10 electric motorbikes in Kigali or in Nairobi. So one truck will generate savings equivalent to 10 electric motos. Marise, would you mind going to the next slide? So here is a little bit more about where we are. There's a QR code there if people would like to scan to learn more about the truck. There is a very popular podcast in the UK that a month ago did a show on OX, and you will be able to see more about this OX Generation 3 truck, the one on the right, and also hear from the founder of OX UK, a gentleman called Simon, about what the truck can do and our operations. But essentially where we are right now is 2024, we're making around that $100,000 a day $100,000 a month revenue that I mentioned. The OX Gen 3 truck is built and operational. We have very exciting news coming soon at OX, which we will be announcing in November. And this will power the fact that we will have 100 of these trucks on the road in Rwanda through 2025. And then the funding, at least the first loss equity that the banks require to superpower our fleet on the way forward. We also would like to start doing a pilot in another country in 2025 in East Africa. I haven't quite decided where that will be yet. We've started work with the Kuhne Foundation and the Smart Freight Center in October, and I'm looking forward to talking more to Olivia, especially about that. I guess I would also like to say at the bottom, we didn't go it alone at OX. We've had a lot of support since 2021 from the UK, Innovate UK, and the Advanced Propulsion Center for our R&D, and then a host of support in Rwanda towards charges paid for by the Rwanda Green Fund, a EEP Africa grant that we will be announcing in November that pays for a new hub, USAID for training and connecting our producer customers to our trucks, and TechnoServe, a whole lot of training and capacity development there. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to introduce OX, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Colin. Really interesting to learn, and it's such a cool looking truck, and I love how you think about things as, you know, gender equality as well, and that really ties into that transformative approach that we need, that, you know, decarbonizing transport can help with, and understanding the local context. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's time for our Q&A. So if you have any questions for Colin or any of the other speakers, now is your chance. I did see a hand before, I think from Mr. Karim Ben Amara, and I'm sorry to not have given you a chance to talk, but we had to move on to the next presentation. If you'd still like to, there you are. Hi, Karim, welcome. You can pose your question.
Hello, thanks, Marise. And my question is to Mr. Glenn Kwabena. So my question is about, you presented the retrofitting as a solution to accelerate the electrification of truck fleet in Ghana. I have a question on that. Does this retrofitting not present a risk in terms of safety of these trucks? Because, for example, I think we need to review the braking system because of the weight, which will increase by the batteries. So has this safety point been taken into consideration or no? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Yes, so because we initially put engagement with some expertise, it came out clear issue of safety, not only safety on the braking system alone, but safety too on the users of the road, in a sense that they may not probably hear the louder noise of these trucks as they used to, and therefore may pose a level of safety concern to them. Now, with the issue of the braking, yes, we took into consideration the aspect of the load on the braking system. However, with the inclusion of the regeneration system, we brought in a mechanical system known as the regeneration to help the vehicle to recoup energy even at point of stopping and at point of slow movement. And that's also went well to help with the, let me say, the needed torque that ought to be exerted on the brake. So yes, it was a concern, but technically we were able to find a way of managing it to avoid it to become a major concern on the various trucks that are being retrofitted. I don't know whether this has been of help. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. And if you have any follow-up questions for Glenn or any of the other speakers, our email addresses are on the slide, so please feel free to reach out to us at any time. I see one more question in the chat from Michael. Is there something the freight sector can learn from e-bus companies like Basigo in Kenya, which managed to develop sustainable business models for e-buses, pay as you go, financially separating the battery from the vehicle? Interesting question, Michael, thank you. Any of the speakers who would like to give an answer to this?
I could give an answer from a Rwanda context, if that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, Basigo, as you know, are also in Rwanda now. Just raised a decent amount of equity and debt to expand their fleet. With regards to the freight sector, absolutely. I mean, we run pay-as-you-go transport. So we not only build the vehicles, but we operate them. And our customers pay essentially the same per kilo, per kilogram as they would pay a bicycle, or as they would pay if they rented a Daihatsu Dina or a Toyota Hilux, if you were to gross it up to the same weight and volume of goods. So definitely pay-as-you-go is the right way to go. Our customers, being predominantly smallholder farmers, have a concrete price cap on what they can afford to pay for our services. And therefore it's on us to pare our costs down such that we can meet that cap on the price that's affordable. I wish we could separate the battery physically from the vehicle, but for us, our batteries are half a ton worth of expensive and very sensitive equipment. So we do our charging at night. Financially separating the battery, again, would be great if we could. Half the cost of an ox truck is in the battery. And if we ever found a way to finance the battery separately from the powertrain and chassis, that would definitely be a great way to reach our finance target. That's from Ox. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. It's already 11:30, so that means our 90 minutes have flown by, at least from my perspective. I want to thank you all for participating, and I hope that you've learned a lot, that you were inspired and excited to see all of these examples of trucks being decarbonized around the globe. I want to thank all our speakers and co-hosts for your willingness to join us today. Thank you so much. And Andrea, I see that you are here, so back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marise. Thank you very much. Very interesting to see how sectors that were more challenging and are coming increasingly into the pathway of the climate commitment, which is our topic of today, the climate commitment. This is why we do things. This is how we are moving to a future sustainable for everyone. So Marise, maybe a key message that you will, all of us, to keep while we review the session on YouTube next time.
Thank you. Yes, I think one key message is the potential of transformative sustainable development if you decarbonize trucks. So you can have an environmental impact, an economic impact, but also a social impact. And that is, I think, the key of what we're talking about. And then talking about climate commitment, I invite all countries to please get in touch with Ricardo and I so we can see if you can sign the global MOU and really get behind these ambitious targets of zero-emission trucks and buses. That's it for me. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you, Marise. Thank you, everyone, for your effort, your presentation, for the work you are doing actually in reality. And this gives me a nice bridge to invite everyone after lunch. We are writing for the future of transport. We are normally asking for more participation, and this is an opportunity. Come and write with us the message that this global transport community will be delivering to the COP on Monday. And I saw the QR code. If we can go back to that, just a couple of minutes more. We appreciate feedback for the organization so we can improve and make a nice next conference with your feedback. So if you have the time, please give us your feedback from the QR code here. And I wish you a nice rest, a nice lunch. And then we see us again at 1:30 to write the message for a future sustainable transport to be shared in the COP on behalf of this global transport community. Thank you, Marise. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Enjoy
Thank you.
Transport Week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.